I didn't expect the silence in my house to feel this heavy. It had been 3 months since his father, my ex-husband, moved out for good. 3 months since the papers were signed. 3 months since I'd told myself I was strong enough to live alone again. But strength has a strange way of fading when the sun goes down. I sat at the edge of the couch, staring at the same lamp I'd turned on every night since the divorce. It cast a warm glow across the living room, but no amount of light could chase away the feeling that something inside me had dimmed. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I was empty. That kind of emptiness. It cracks you quietly. It chips at you slowly. And then one day, you wake up realizing you've forgotten the sound of someone saying your name with care. I hadn't spoken to anyone all day. I hadn't wanted to. I hadn't even touched my phone until it buzzed against the table. I ignored it at first. Lately, every message felt like an obligation I didn't have the energy for. But when it buzzed again, something nudged me to look. The name on the screen nearly made my chest tighten. Michael. My stepson. We hadn't talked much since the divorce. After all, I was no longer officially anything to him. Or so I thought. His message was simple. Hey, are you home? I stared at it for a long time. Michael, with his calm voice and quiet maturity. Michael, who used to ask me about school, life, girls, everything. Michael, who I watched grow from an awkward teenager into a thoughtful young man. I typed, deleted, typed again, then finally sent, yes. Why? He responded instantly. I'm outside. My heart dropped. I walked to the door slowly, afraid, unsure, unprepared. And when I opened it, there he was. Michael, standing on my porch at dusk, hands in his pockets, expression soft and warm, as if he'd been waiting for me to breathe again. His voice was gentle. Amanda, you okay? No one had asked me that in weeks, not like they meant it. I felt something inside me crack, not painfully, but like a door opening after being sealed shut for too long. Come inside, I whispered. He stepped in, looking around like he was remembering the home that once felt like his. And in that moment, I had no idea that his visit would become the turning point I didn't know I needed. A moment where loneliness loosened its grip, and something warm, familiar, and unexpected began to fill the space between us. Michael stepped inside slowly, almost cautiously, like he didn't want to disturb the quiet I'd wrapped myself in. He closed the door behind him gently, the way someone does when they care about the person on the other side of it. For a moment, we just stood there. He looked older, not in a tired way, but in a way that told me life had shaped him, sharpened him, given him a confidence he didn't have before. And I felt exposed under his gaze, seen in a way I wasn't ready for, but maybe needed. You didn't answer my calls last week, he said softly, not accusatory, just noticing. He looked around the living room at the untouched mail, the half-folded blanket, the lamp casting its lonely glow. I was worried about you. Worried? Someone was worried about me. I swallowed hard and forced a small smile. I've just been tired. He tilted his head slightly. Amanda, that's not tired. That's something else. I didn't respond. I didn't have the words. He walked past me into the living room, not like a guest, not like a stranger, but like someone who had once belonged here and still knew how to move through the space. He sat down on the couch, same place he used to sit when he'd come home from school and tell me about his day. Come here, he said quietly. It wasn't a command. It wasn't even a request. It was an invitation, one I didn't realize I'd been waiting for. I sat beside him, but not too close. Close enough to feel the warmth of him. close enough to remember the comfort of familiar presence, far enough to pretend I still had emotional boundaries. "You don't have to pretend with me," he said. My throat tightened. "How'd you even know something was wrong?" I whispered. He took a slow breath. "Because I know you, and because you've always been the one person I could talk to when I felt lost. I'm just returning the favor." Something warm spread through me. Soft, unexpected, almost fragile. He continued, eyes still on me. "I never stopped caring about you just because the paperwork changed. You're still you." It was strange how hearing that from him made the silence in the room feel different. Not empty, not lonely, just quiet, safe. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was collapsing inward. We talked, not about the divorce, not about what I'd lost, but about little things, memories, moments, the kind you don't realize mean anything until life takes a turn and they're all you have left to hold on to. At one point, he looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "Amanda, you've always been stronger than you think you are. But even strong people need someone." My eyes stung, and this time I didn't blink it away. I let the tears fall, quietly, without apology. Michael didn't look away. He didn't freeze. He didn't try to fix things with empty words. He just moved closer, slowly, gently, and placed his hand over mine. Warm, steady, grounding, and I didn't pull away. For the first time in a long time, I didn't want to. Michael didn't rush me. He didn't fill the silence with advice or force me to talk. He simply stayed there, beside me, present in a way I hadn't experienced from anyone in months. His thumb brushed lightly against my hand. A small, unintentional motion maybe, but it sent a warmth through me I wasn't expecting. I looked at him, and for a moment, I didn't see the boy I'd helped raise. I saw the man he'd become, broad-shouldered, steady, composed in a way that made the whole room feel less fragile. "You've been crying alone for too long," he said softly. The honesty in his voice cut deeper than anything else. Not because it hurt, but because it was true. "I didn't want to bother anyone," I whispered. He shook his head gently. "You're not a bother, not to me." Something in the way he said it, quiet, firm, certain, made my breath catch. He leaned back slightly, studying me the way someone studies a sky before a storm, not afraid of what they'll find, just attentive. "I know what it's like to feel like you're carrying everything alone," he said. "You were there for me when I didn't know how to talk to Dad about anything, when I felt misunderstood, when I felt like I didn't belong." I blinked. "You were a teenager. You barely talked to anyone back then." He smiled faintly, a soft, almost nostalgic smile. "I talked to you." The words were simple, but they landed in the center of my chest, because he was right. Back then, he'd come home from school and drop his backpack on the floor with that frustrated sigh teenagers have. And somehow I always ended up being the one he talked to, the one he trusted. "I never forgot that," he added. A warmth spread through me, something between gratitude and ache. "I didn't think you remembered any of that," I said. "I remember everything," he replied quietly. And then, as if he sensed I was drifting back into sadness, he shifted closer, close enough that our knees almost touched. "Amanda, look at me." I did. His eyes were steady, warm, grounding. "You don't have to be strong right now. Not with me." My lips trembled before I could stop them. He reached up and brushed a tear from my cheek with the back of his fingers. Gentle, careful, like he was handling something precious. "Amanda, You're allowed to need someone. The room felt impossibly still. Not tense, not awkward, just full. Full of all the emotions I'd buried. Full of the connection I didn't know I still had. And when his hand lingered for a moment against my cheek, I didn't pull away. I let myself lean into it, just slightly, just enough to feel human again. Just enough to feel cared for. Michael's hand slowly drifted back down, but the warmth of his touch stayed with me, resting quietly beneath my skin. For the first time in months, my breathing felt steady, grounded, almost peaceful. He sat back, his voice low and calm. Amanda, you're not alone. Not now. Not ever. Not as long as I'm here. I looked at him, really looked at him. This young man I had helped raise, this boy who used to sit at my kitchen table with homework spread everywhere. This teenager who asked me life questions his father never had the patience to answer. Now he was the one guiding me through the darkness. Life is strange like that. It circles back. It gives. It takes. And sometimes it returns someone to you at the exact moment you need them most. He stood up slowly and held out his hand. Come on, he said with a soft smile. Let's get some air. You've been stuck in this house for too long. I hesitated, then placed my hand in his. The simple act felt like stepping toward the version of myself I thought I'd lost. We walked outside together, the cool evening air brushing against my skin like a reset, a quiet reminder that the world was still turning, and I could turn with it. On the porch, he glanced at me out of the corner of his eye. You don't have to pretend with me, he said again, softer this time. And you don't have to face everything alone. I swallowed hard, the truth settling deep and warm in my chest. Thank you, Michael, I whispered. Really? Thank you. He nodded, a small, genuine smile tugging at the corner of his lips. I meant what I said, Amanda. I'm here, for whatever you need. Not because of the past, not because of Dad, but because I care about you. My heart clenched at the sincerity in his voice. And then, the night softened around us. Not heavy, not sharp, not aching, just calm. For the first time in a long time, I felt held by something other than my own thoughts. We talked for a while on the porch, about life, about changes, about the strange ways people find their way back to each other. And when he finally left, he hugged me gently, with a quiet strength that made me believe tomorrow might feel a little lighter. After he drove away, I stood there under the porch light and breathed in deeply. It was the first breath that didn't hurt. Because on that day, the day my stepson reached out, he didn't just visit me. He reminded me that connection still exists, that healing doesn't always come from where we expect, and that sometimes the person who shows up for you isn't the one you lost, but the one you helped shape along the way. And that was exactly what I needed most.